Hi friends! In this video I'm going to be making an 1890s corset mock-up. I think I'm just making a mock-up. This will probably be two videos, one mock-up video and one final corset video. I'm making an 1890s corset, and this is going to be like my first proper corset. I actually made some 18th century stays a few months ago. They were not the best, but yeah, I've never made a proper Victorian corset. So this will be my first, which is very exciting. I think I want to do a simple 12-piece vertical pieced corset. Some corsets of this time had either like gussets, gores, whatever you call them, pieces, kind of triangular-ish pieces inserted in like the bust or the hips, and some had pieces that were like a hip piece that didn't go all the way up. I would like to stay away from those as much as possible because they look scary. So we're gonna stick with vertical pieces. So yeah, I think I'm going to draft my own pattern. I am going to look at other patterns to base my pattern off of, but I just think that my proportions are so far from probably what they were made for that I might as well just look at the shapes and try to draft based on my own measurements. So that's the plan. Yeah, so the actual corset that I want to make is a mid-bust, fairly short corset. I saw something very similar to this in an advertisement. I think it was a lingerie advertisement from 1898. So that's about the time when this corset would have been worn, although I've seen very similar corsets all the way from the 1880s up through like 1900s. So yeah, I'm making a fairly short mid-bust to kind of below the waist, but not that much below the waist corset. It's going to have, I think, a very, very slight sweetheart shape on top. In the late Victorian era, we see a lot of kind of straight front, straight neckline, and very slight sweetheart necklines. I don't think we see any like super sweetheart necklines. I think they're generally just like a slight sweetheart or just straight across. A little talk about anatomy, actually. I have a short torso. I should rephrase, I have a long torso and short legs, but I have really wide bone structure, especially in my upper body. So the proportions of my torso bone structure is proportioned like a short torso. I actually have about 1 inch between the top of my hip bone and the bottom of my rib cage. So there's 1 inch where I can really squish, which means that in off-the-rack corsets, I can't really corset down at all because it just puts a bunch of pressure on either my rib cage or my hip bones or both, depending on which way I lace it. But it doesn't put really any pressure at all on my actual waist because the curve is too long to fit my body. So I need to design a corset that has a bunch of room for my big wide rib cage and then nips in at the waist and then goes back out for the hips. And I think that means it's going to look really, really reduced in the waist, even if it's not, because I'm already a fairly hourglass shaped person. I'm like kind of an inverted triangle, but my measurements, bust, waist, and hips are fairly hourglassed. So this is going to look kind of ridiculously hourglassed, I think, even though it won't be. And I'm not going to reduce very much in this. The plan is to draft this corset so that I have about 1.5 inch lacing gap, laced down about 1/2 inch of my waist measurement. So it's not going to be meant for like tight lacing really at all. This is just going to be kind of a comfortably slightly laced down corset, which I thought that I couldn't do, but it was just because the corsets that I was trying to wear were off-the-rack corsets that were not proportioned for my vertical proportions, so they were putting pressure on my rib cage when they really should not have been. So yeah, that's the plan. We're going to draft something. I think I'm going to draw out a grid with like my bust and hip and waist like lines spaced apart the way that they are on me, and then I'm going to draw out, I don't know, whichever one is bigger, my bust or my high hip. Probably bust. The whole thing is going to be the width of my bust, and then I'll draft pattern pieces that are that wide at the bust and then bring them in at the waist to fit my waist measurement. We'll see. We're drafting on the half scale minus like 1 inch and something, or less than 1 inch for the lacing gap. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Okay, let's draft. So now I'm tracing all my pieces off with tracing paper because some of these overlap and I don't want to cut this out. So. I did the thing where you tape together your corset pattern to see what it looks like in 3D. It looks really extreme to me, but hey, we'll see. I think I have to make a mock-up to really know what's going on here. Okay, so I think ideally you would want to be really, really close to this busk and use a presser foot that allowed you to do that, but because this is a mock-up, I think this is fine for now. So on this mock-up, I did twill tape boning channels and I put them between the seams instead of on the seams so that I would have access to the seams without taking off the boning channels. I also did eyelets. These are really low quality eyelets that I just had around. Definitely not fit for a final corset, but they were fine for this mock-up. Okay. Hello friends. It is the next day and I have my mock-up pretty much complete. I'm actually wearing it right now. I feel conflicted though, because I'm very short-waisted, I'm also very thin, I don't have a lot of fat, I have a little bit of muscle, but I just don't have a lot to squish, and I have a rib cage that really does not like being squished. So I feel like I can't really improve my silhouette with a corset. Like, I was trying this on last night and I put on my 3-panel walking skirt over it and I was like, this isn't better. Like, my waist measurement is almost the same unless I like lace it down a lot. And it just adds bulk to my rib cage. So I was like, why? What is the point of this? Why don't I just wear it without a corset like I made it for? Also, that skirt probably I would need to make slightly differently to wear over a corset because it's just like incorrectly shaped. But yeah, I was like, this is not making sense. It doesn't improve my silhouette, it just adds bulk. But it's a new day, so I'm gonna revisit it. We're gonna I'll show you some footage of this mock-up because it's actually pretty good as far as fitting my body. Oh, and side note, I mean not side note, I know that corsets are not strictly for shaping, they're also for structure and to like have some kind of something to distribute weight of like heavy skirts and stuff, but I don't know, I mean, for like kind of later Victorian Edwardian where you don't have huge cage crinolines, there isn't like a ton of heavy skirts. I mean, sometimes there were, but like skirts are getting lighter. Like, do I really need to do the proper undergarments if they're not actually gonna help me keep that shape? Now that's probably false and I can probably fit this to improve my shape at least a little bit. But yeah, I'm just like a little bit bitter about the fact that even though this does, like, this is the first corset I've ever put on where I could reduce in the waist because it had enough room in the ribs and hips, like close enough to the waist for me to actually reduce. And I was like, huh, this isn't even like doing that much because I can't reduce in the ribs. Although, okay, there's a little bit too much room in the ribs and hips, just slightly. So maybe once I fix that, it will slightly reduce the bottom of my ribs and then I'll get a nicer shape and then it'll be fine. That's probably what's gonna happen. Okay. Also, another note, I measured my waist to bust incorrectly because I was measuring natural waist to bust, and natural waist is, as we know, the place where your flesh is the smallest in the center of your torso. But corsets cinch at the skeletal waist, which is not always the same. It's actually usually a little bit lower than the natural waist. So mine is about 1 inch lower, so as you can see, this is supposed to be mid-bust, and it is definitely under-bust. It should be here and it's there. So yeah, that's a thing. Actual fitting footage now. Okay, so here we are. This is not really cinched down, so I can go ahead and cinch it down. So right here, I'm rambling a lot. I'm thinking that my body is asymmetrical because the busk is tilted. And while it's normal to have a little bit of asymmetry in your body, mine is actually pretty symmetrical, and I found this out because I sewed this mock-up not very precisely, and my second mock-up I sew much more precisely, and I sewed it symmetrically first to test, and the busk was much straighter. So I think I actually just sewed this mock-up asymmetrically, and then here's me trying to figure out how to fix it. Also, this busk is too short. This is a 9-inch busk, and I am very short, but I think I need a 10-inch busk for this. So I did order a 10-inch busk, which will be coming hopefully in a few days. But for now, we're working with this 9-inch busk. Also, like, so the ribs, of course, are actually pretty good here. I could probably go in a tiny bit here, and then this needs to come up so it's actually half bust. And then hips could come in on the right side. The hips in the back. So there's too much fullness there, which needs to get taken out. It seems pretty good through the entire front and side. It's just when you get back here, I need to take fullness out. So, yeah. Also, part of why I was really frustrated with this, even though I can lace down in this, unlike every other corset I've tried, is that the waist is not very long. Like, clearly that's just me, but also this is so narrow that to have a 1-inch waistband, I have to go up like to more than my natural waist because it can't be all the way in here. It has to be like sitting out here. But that might be solved by making the waist a little bit longer, but also just by like having proper flossing, because this is just kind of cinching there, whereas if you imagine it should be like that, it's like a little bit less curved. So to do my pattern alterations, the main thing I wanted to do was to make my pattern longer. So I started by drawing a line down the middle of my paper, and I lined up the waistline that was already marked on all of my pattern pieces with that line, and I traced out all of my pattern pieces that way. Then I drew another horizontal line above that one, and I re-lined up my pattern pieces and drew the top that inch higher, and then I blended the two lines together to get the base of my new pattern pieces. Okay, this is where I'm at. My pieces are only very, very slightly altered. So hopefully this is an improvement. I'm gonna cut it out and we'll make another mock-up. Hello, it is the next day and I did more eyelets because I felt bad hammering metal things at 10 p.m. Yeah, this corset is really great. I need to have a finished corset pattern by tonight if I want to be on schedule. So, I was a little worried, but this corset is really, really close to perfect, actually. So, I'm less worried now. It laces down about 3/4 of an inch of my waist measurement pretty comfortably with a almost exactly even lacing gap. There's a tiny bit too much width up here at the rib still, but as you can see, like, that looks pretty good. But yeah, I think I can take in a tiny bit more at the ribs here. Not much though. I really like the front shaping. I think I can just need to bring this up, take this in a little bit, and I think otherwise I'm good. going to go straight to final fabric from here. That video will be coming in the next few weeks. I have to get some lace in that I ordered, so it won't be probably next week or the week after that, but I will still be posting every Sunday until then and after that. So if you want to see more of my face and my sewing room, subscribe, like, comment, share, do all the things, and yeah, I hope you have a fantabulous day.